All right. So we are going to start, if you notice in your program, we're going to start with the third stage this time. Third stage is buds, blooms, and garden snakes. All righty. Okay, I hope after last time you guys had a chance to go into the garden in meditation and start to really open your heart in that direction. Before we get to the first or the third level or stage or chamber or part or whatever you want to call it, I want to first talk about direction. When you look at a regular map, a regular road map, you have the direction arrows, north, south, east, west, correct? This journey is no different. This map is no different. We have direction, and that's how we know where we are going. If you look at the center, if you want to get to the center, into the depths of God, and you start, like we said, at the gate of Mary, clearly you need to just go due north. It's a beeline, correct? If you verge, either way, you're getting outside again. So, due north. On your program, you'll see the direction arrows up in the top. You'll see that they say HL, which is north, and SL is everything else. If we start at the gate of Mary, we want to go straight to the tree of life. So what is HL and SL? Well, HL stands for holy love. Holy love is basically the two great commandments found in Matthew 22, 36 through 40, where Jesus says, all the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments, and it is to love God above all else and your neighbor as yourself. That is the summation of the 10 commandments. So holy love is simply that. It is love that has become holy, been purified. And that is the direction that we have to go in order to reach the goal of where we're headed. The Blessed Mother has been giving messages in Ohio concerning holy love. She calls it chambers through the hearts, but it's the same thing like I had mentioned. St. Teresa of Avila, St. Francis de Sales, again, same thing, the direction. In fact, St. Teresa of Avila says, let us realize that true perfection consists in the love of God and of our neighbor. And the more nearly perfect we observe these two commandments, the nearer to perfection we will become. So again, everybody's saying the same thing. It must be important. Holy love basically is the way to advance. So what is SL, which is every other direction outside of HL? SL is self-love. Self-love is not about God. It's not about others. It's about me. Me. I'll do this because it benefits me. I'll say that because it makes me look good. I'll avoid them because they rub me the wrong way or make me feel a certain way. I don't believe in that moral truth because it offends me, and so forth and so on. Self-love always has, in every circumstance, itself. It's always about me. And in every single case, it leads away from the tree of life. Even in the slightest degree, even if you verge ever so slightly. If the devil has any virtue, which he doesn't, but it's false virtue, it's patience. He will wait you out. If he sees that you're going even a little bit, he's going to work on that, and all of a sudden you made this gigantic turn and you find yourself outside. For example, disordered love. Disordered love might not outwardly seem like self-love, because on the surface, it doesn't appear to be about self. You actually are putting someone else as the focus of your love, your focal point. But it's disordered because God is supposed to be first. And if it's not God above all else, then it's already broken from the beginning. Let me say this kindly. Disordered love is still self-love. And that's why on your map there's all SL. Usually, if we have love for somebody else, love that we call it, if somebody's committing mortal sin, for example, we choose to believe that they should be allowed to commit that mortal sin. In fact, we go so far as to want them to commit that mortal sin because it makes them happy. We may go even so far as to say that that is not mortal sin and relabel it altogether and not even call it sin anymore. We might call it a right or a choosing, something they're obligated to have. And it's still self-love. Disordered love has at the root of it self-love. It's self-love in a pretty hat, if you want to call it. Because here's the thing, if you have disordered love like this, it's either for one of two reasons. One, either you truly believe that your way of thinking trumps God's way of thinking, therefore you love your way over God's way. That's self-love. Or, if it's not that, and you really do believe that that's God's law, but you still are condoning that, it's because you love your reputation and your comfortable little life and relationship more than God's law. And I know that's hard to hear today, but it's truth. If it's not holy love, it's self-love. And that's just that. If you're in the garden and you're going past being pruned and you're pulling out these weeds and you start getting closer, the devil is not going to tempt you the way he would tempt somebody in the outer area, in the darkness. He's going to have to take different tactics. He's going to have to throw different stones, I guess, if you will. And so he's going to tempt you with good because he knows you're focused on good. He knows you want to head in the direction of good, and so he's going to take good and he's going to twist it and pervert it, and he's going to make you believe it. And so if we want to stay on this beeline towards our goal, it is ever so important to know which direction we are headed at every single step and every single moment. And the only way to do that is to consistently, at every moment, follow holy love. Love God above all else, and then neighbor as self. If we can do this in every moment, we know we are headed in the right direction. And if we know it's the right direction, we know eventually we're going to arrive at that place that we want to be. St. Teresa of Avila says, "The devil sets out undermining the soul in trivial ways and involving it in practices which he makes the soul think are not wrong. Little by little, he darkens its understanding and weakens its will, and causes self-love to increase until he begins to withdraw the soul from the love of God, and he persuades it to indulge in its own desires." So you see, there are really only two kinds of love: God's love and human love. Everything else is false. Self-love is not love at all. So the goal of life, to reach the center, is two loves that join: divine love and holy love, our love, that becomes worthy and purified enough to join with God's love. St. Teresa of Avila calls this the spiritual marriage. St. Francis de Sales calls this the excellence of the soul, but it is the same thing. It is love purified to the point where it is holy and able and worthy to join with divine love, which is God's love. So, as we move through life, through the garden, we need to be consistently mindful of this. Every step, every minute, every decision we have to make, does this follow holy love? If it does, keep going. If it does not, maybe we should reevaluate, take it to prayer, try to figure out if it's self-love, why is it self-love? How can I get back to holy love and get back on the track? Okay, now let's move on to stage 3. As you see, it starts with a flat little green area, and then it basically turns into flowers, blooms, and butterflies. Friends, here is where we work on virtue, where we are tried and tested. This is where our steadfastness in prayer and our pruning and everything begins to bear fruit. It's where we begin to reveal ourselves, where people outside who don't see us inside start to say, oh, she's patient. You know, he's faithful. And this is where the virtues come to life, and the world around us starts to take note of the garden. Before that, the garden, nobody else really sees that there's a garden, but here's where the garden starts to affect the world. Before we go any further on the virtues, I would like to backtrack just for a second and touch on something very important. I feel it's important. It's in the pursuit of virtue, we cannot forget about the flesh. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, she just told us that the flesh is out here, and why do we want to worry about the flesh? Because, like it or not, we got to take this journey in the flesh. We cannot separate the two. We are body, mind, and soul. I would like to talk about physical health for just a minute. And I would like to present a scenario to you to kind of explain it. Say my daughter leaves for college, a school like, say, 15 hours away or something, and I want to buy her a car so that she can get home to me. Would I buy her a lemon? No, it's 15 hours. Would I be concerned if she got in an accident and tried to drive that broken down car back to me? Yes. Why? Because that vehicle is what's going to bring her back to me and keep her safe. And what does physical health have to do with this, the spiritual journey? In my opinion, it has everything to do with it. Now, I know this is the lesser, the spirit is the greater, but God is concerned about your physical body. God created your physical body. Your physical body is his dwelling place and his temple, and he needs it to be strong. And the devil, he knows how important your body is. He knows its importance and its purpose, if you will, but he also knows its inclinations. He also knows, your little defects. He knows how to incite its carnal desires. The devil knows how to break down your body. And he has been hard at work trying to do that. And not just individually, but on a global, large scale. This is something that's very important to me, and I'm bringing it up now because I feel like I would do you a disservice, or I wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't touch on it. But a good portion of the food that we eat, that we buy at the grocery store, is not food. It's chemicals. A good portion of the things that we do, the devil has been making his way into these little areas that we might say are completely harmless, but are damaging us. They are damaging the vehicle that we need to get through this journey. And you're probably sitting there thinking, this girl has flipped. What did she eat for lunch? Okay, this has gone in a different direction. You might be thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to tell you that I do. I used to weigh almost 300 pounds. I've had 5 heart procedures. I have suffered with depression and anxiety. I have suffered with blood sugars. I have suffered with hormone problems and pain. And I am here to tell you that it's very hard to practice virtue in that condition. Very hard. So when you ask me, what does the body have to do with the spiritual journey? Everything. Everything. I don't have any of those problems anymore. I used to take, 20 pills a day, all prescriptions for different things. I don't take one, not one. I don't have any of the problems that I used to have. And you can ask me, did I experience some miraculous healing? Absolutely I did. Absolutely I did, but not in the way you think. I used to, not in the way I even wanted. I used to cry out to God on a daily basis, please take this away from me. Please just lay your hand on me and make it go away. And he didn't. He didn't. He chose to do it another way. He chose to teach me. He chose to use education. He chose to show me my body, how he created it, and he showed me the things that were damaging it. And he gave me the strength to change my ways, change my life, change the things I was eating. And, it wasn't quick. It wasn't miraculous in that it was a momentary boom, but it was miraculous nonetheless. Because here I am today, I don't take any pills. So, knowing what I know, I can't keep it to myself. And I think that's the whole point. If God would have healed me the way that I wanted him to heal me, quickly, mysteriously, without any way of knowing how or why, it would have just been my healing. But I don't think that's why God did it. God chose education because he knew I would share it with other people. And it wasn't supposed to be a healing for me. It was supposed to be a healing for everybody. And so that's why I'm bringing it up today. When I was at that place, it didn't matter how hard I tried. I would try to be virtuous and I would try to be holy, but I could not find joy of the Lord in depression. I could not trust him in anxiety. I could not serve him in pain. I could not pray in fatigue. I could not practice patience with raging hormones. I could not practice temperance with erratic blood sugars and chemical-induced food addiction. I could have gone to the garden all day long, but there was something preventing me from getting there, and it was myself. It was failure after failure. Life got harder, depression got worse, and I got further and further away from where I wanted to be. And the most monumental conversation I think I've had with my spiritual director was about this very thing. It was a time when I was crushed by my failures, crushed. And I went on, and he looked at me, and he said, "You want to be holy?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Holy is healthy, and healthy is holy." And I was like, wow, okay. That wasn't the direction that I was going. I prayed about those words for weeks. I had to take a step back and look at myself as a whole person. Up until that point, I had my physical being here and my spiritual being here. And I couldn't figure out why I had this disconnect inside of me and why nothing was working. I was a mess. I hated myself for not being able to fast, for being a terrible glutton. But man, you know what? It's really hard to fast when your blood sugars are at 38. Blood sugars don't care if it's Ash Wednesday or Good Friday, if it's a fast day or a feast day. You're going to eat. And here comes the guilt. Here comes the self-hatred. Here comes, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm never going to make it. And then when he said, healthy is holy and holy is healthy, it brought everything together. And I had to look at that, and I had to look at what was really preventing me from not fasting on Good Friday. It wasn't my lack of wanting to be in there. It was the devil using my body to prevent me from being in there. And now, please, I am not saying that if you're not healthy, you're not holy. That is not what Father was saying that day to me either. In fact, there are souls who God allows for reasons only known to him that receive illness and disease as part of their journey. And God gives them the strength and the grace, and he uses that. He uses that for every bit of his glory, and he uses it to bring them through here. I will talk to you about a very special soul who actually did that, a dear friend of mine, in the next session, but I wanted to make you aware that I was not referring to those types of instances. I'm referring to regular, everyday decisions we make for or against our health that do actually affect the body and do actually affect the spiritual journey. Some of us, we've been chosen for health, but we're just being sabotaged. The devil is getting us to put peanut butter in our gas tank and then watching us cry because we can't get around. A good portion of the things sold in grocery stores, we shouldn't be putting in our gas tank. We just shouldn't. God didn't make it. He didn't make our bodies to digest it. And I know that's way off topic, but I feel like that needs to be said today. What my spiritual director was saying that day is that there's holiness in taking ownership of your health, taking it seriously, looking at the body from God's perspective as a temple, something created by him, for him. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20 says, "Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own, for you have been purchased at a price? Therefore, glorify God in your body." When I started looking at my body, my physical flesh as a temple, life-changing. Heck, it even caused me to rename my ministry, which is now called Rebuilding Your Temple. For a while there, it was just, I had this ministry, and it was focused on just this. And then I had this health journey that I was on, and today they are merged. And I knew it was God's will when I merged them. Actually, it's a funny story. I have taken this so seriously that I'm actually taking courses and working towards getting my certification to be a health coach for preventative and reparative nutrition for kids through adults and the elderly, because I feel that it affects this. I also became a distributor of natural supplements because they have helped me with this. And it's funny because years ago I was in my prayer journal, I was going into the garden, and I was crying out to God one day about all these different things I was struggling with. And I started hearing God speak back to me, and I started writing things down, like the soak meditation. And that day, God spoke to me about my health, and he actually used the word, he was talking about me making better choices, and he used the words plant-based. And I'm going to tell you what, I closed up my prayer journal and I put my pen down and I thought, okay, God is not talking to me about my health. I had convinced myself that morning that God did not care about my health, that he was not wasting my time, my morning, talking to me about health, and that I was probably possessed by the devil because God doesn't use words like plant-based. So I had closed up my journal and I almost never went back because of those two words. Until someone approached me about these supplements, and they were plant-based. And they helped. And through education and making better choices, I began to overcome a lot of different things. I began to feel better. I began to enjoy life. I began to experience the joy of the Lord. I began to get better at patience. I'm not going to say I'm patient, but get better at patience. And it regulated my blood sugars, and I have been able to fast. So the point is, God cares about your heart, your health. If he didn't care about the body, Jesus wouldn't have healed it in the Gospels. Why would it matter, But he does. He cares about the body. He knows how important the body is, and he heals it. So I encourage you and I beg you to take this seriously. Read food labels. Try and buy more natural options. That's my little pitch for today on that. But pray about it. Pray about it first and ask God if that's going to help you. Okay, now back to the third level, the buds, blooms of virtue. Here's where all the hard work that you've done in secret, pruning and weeding, becomes visible to others. It's like a butterfly that leaves its cocoon. It's finally visible, all that hard work we put in. Here's what the world sees, what you're made of. The Bible says, by their fruits you will know them, Matthew 7:20. Some people have beautiful, sweet blooms. Some people, the outer layers of the bud seem normal, but when it unfolds to reveal its true self, there's only darkness. Some people have been drinking polluted water and growing polluted blooms. Here's where we see what you're made of. This is why the journey is so important. Your garden begins to beautify the world that we live in. The true foliage of your patience, kindness, compassion becomes medicine for other people. Those people are very important here because God gives each of us opportunities to practice this virtue over and over. And he does it in our vocation. Whatever our vocation is, whatever we're called to, those are the people that are going to help us perfect this virtue, and those are the people that are going to get us to bloom and help us open. God designed your body for that vocation. You're equipped to take that path, only that path. So, discernment and vocation, whether it's parenthood, married life, parenthood, whether it's single, religious, whatever it is. It's important to also understand that while we live in this dimension, while we go inside, we don't stay there. Like our real house or our real home, we come home to rest, to love, to gather strength, in order to go back outside our home and work and serve. Such is the case here too. Your garden is your true home if you carry it with you, but its purpose is to build you up for out there. Please don't think that here you're in the clear. Stage 3 also requires a great deal of reflection, hard work, and self-knowledge. St. Teresa of Avila said, "If you think you have all virtue, you have not." She says the devil will run 1,000 times around hell if by doing so he can make us believe that we have one single virtue, which we don't. So continually pray for that humility at every step. It's not uncommon at this stage, as we emerge from the weeds and vines, that we find that we have a tick attached to us, maybe even a garden snake. Little something that slithered into our boot or latched onto our shirt. These are called attachments. They take hold of us in the outer court or early in the journey. Sometimes we're attached to a relationship, a possession, a social status, a goal, money. There's a million things we could be attached to. These things need purged here as well. These aren't sins or bad habits, but they are things very close to us, things we hang on to, things that we put above God and distort our direction. Maybe we are codependent in a relationship or bound by the perception of others. Whatever the attachment is, these affect the way we think, the way we act, the choices we make. And they compete with the goal. They prohibit steps in holy love. So, some of you up until now, you've wanted to be free of these. So I have to ask you, which do you prefer? The chain or the celestial garden? Because you can't have both. You can't move any farther until you decide to detach yourself from these. Which do you prefer, bondage or freedom? As we get to the third stage and as we work on the virtues, it becomes ever more important for us to see which things are holding us back. So I'm going to leave you with that question, and we're going to go back into our small groups for just a little while and work on this together. There's a few questions in there. Again, feel free to do your own thing if you feel led. Those are just a guide. And I will see you back up here in a little bit.